Great. Welcome, everyone. My name is Leslie Kirby, and I'm the chair of the Community Relations Committee of the Jewish Federation and Jewish Foundation of Nashville and Middle Tennessee. We're also co-sponsored today and for all of our subsequent sessions with the Nashville Jewish Social Justice Roundtable. And so we thank them for their participation and support as well. Today, our guest is Sharon Hurt, Metro Council at-large member. And I just want to read a little bit of her background so that everyone's familiar in case they're not. Sharon Hurt holds a bachelor's degree from Tennessee State University and an MA in nonprofit leadership from Belmont. Her professional experience includes working as the CEO of Jump Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership. Ms. Hurt is going to be talking with us today about her current criminal justice reforms being considered by the Metro Council, including a proposal to prohibit MNPD from hiring police officers from other law enforcement agencies who were previously fired or are currently being investigated for serious misconduct or use of force. So a brief introduction, but hopefully we'll get to know you a little bit better as we talk through today. So maybe to start us off, just for those of you or for those on the call who are less familiar, tell us what got you interested in politics to start with. So what brought you to the City Council?
Well, actually, I had worked in the community for several years, as you indicated, and knowing that I wanted to really effect some change, I had to add some power to it. I had to add some oomph to what it was I was doing. And to be able to do that comes policy, legislation, to be able to do that. You know, all of it I think is well intentioned, but unless you're really able to put some policy behind it, it really doesn't matter. So, and something like this, as a citizen, I could easily say, this is something that needs to be done or we'd like to see done, but unless I'm actually able to put policy and get it in effective, it really doesn't help as much. So that's basically it. And I'm a member of an organization where I was really, truly inspired by one of our elderly members of that organization. And it all just worked out. I think, you know, it was just meant to be.
So my daughter has a t-shirt that says thoughts and prayers, and that's crossed out. And then it says on the bottom, policy and change. So you decided to live that.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. So when did you first join the City Council?
So I was elected in 2015 and then re-elected for a second term in 2019. We have 2 terms that we're able to serve, and they're 4 years each. And this is my second term. And once this is done, my term as a council member is over, unless I decide to go into a district, which I can tell you now that I am not deciding to do that.
Okay. But you could decide to run for mayor or vice mayor.
I could. That's the thought and prayer part.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about these current proposals. So there were a number of police proposals put before the council, and most of them got pulled. Can you tell us a little bit about what that process was like?
Yes, and I think that basically me and some of my colleagues are interested in building the trust. We're interested in building the trust with the community and law enforcement. So from those things, and with the climate of what we have going on in the nation right now, we wanted to do something to effect the kind of change so people would feel better about things and about our law enforcement. So it's really all about trust. I had a trio of bills. One was to focus on the implicit bias training. The other was to focus on, of course, you know, the hiring. And the other was to change the right to the citizen to be the first to question. You know, we have the Miranda approach now, and I was wanting to give the citizen the right to say, officer, is your video on? And that to get the citizen off of the defense, because I think that's what hypens a lot of situations or escalates it, because the citizen is feeling nervous, threatened, and especially those who may have not had a really good relationship with the law in the past, and which we know that that's to be true with a lot of Black males. So thinking that if we would de-escalate that immediately by giving them that right, that it would help. But I guess a couple of days before the council meeting, the Community Oversight Office sent out a manual about the 8 can't wait advisory policies. And we found that a lot of the things that we were asking for in those bills came in that policy manual. So I know for that reason, I pulled those two other bills that I had, and I know that Councilman Sledge pulled his bills. And we're recommending that the NMPD follows the policies recommended by the Community Oversight Office as it relates to the 8 can't wait. But this one, I felt that it was strong enough that we needed to make sure that we did not hire people who we know that have the propensity to have bad behavior, and wanted to put something in place, and knowing that we also are in the climate of the recent George Floyd killing, and we got a couple of incidences not in the far distant past that we are dealing with right now with um, Daniel Hambrick and Jacquees Clemens. So wanted to put those forward, and I'm really, really happy because um, public safety had a meeting to discuss our bills with the police. And we both had our opportunities to speak. And since that meeting and before the council meeting, the police came back and said that they would be comfortable with my bill if I would change a word. And that was, and I thought that was a win, a great compromise, because we got to do, as I guess President Bush said, that that's of evidence and perfection of democracy, when we both can work together and come up with something that we both could be satisfied.
Can you explain for those who are less familiar what the Community Oversight Board is and how it works and interfaces with you and with the MNPD?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's two entities. It's the Community Oversight Board, and then it's a Community Oversight Office. So a couple of years ago, it was a petition out asking that we create a community oversight board. It was, I think we started interviews in January of 2019, and we were able to select a board. And it was done by a petition of getting over 80,000 names from the citizens of Nashville, because people were concerned after the killing of Jacquees Clemens and the issue that we had with Daniel Hambrick. And the community overwhelmingly agreed that there should be a community oversight board. And the board was designed to help create the office who is going to actually carry out and implement the things that a community oversight office would do in terms of working directly with the police department and making sure that they are held to some accountable activities as it relates with the community. And there were several studies done. I know one by Gideon's Army called Driving While Black, and then the mayor at the time, Barry, then got a policing report that was done by another outside agency. And some of the same things, most of the things in the Driving While Black document came to be very repeated in the policing. So as a result of that, and with the community speaking very confidently that they would like to have that, the board was formed. And as a result, in the charter, it was approved for us to have a community oversight office, which consists of a director and some supporting staff members to help a researcher, investigator in order to do the work, and working in tandem with the police to make sure. And I think that the Community Oversight Board or Community Oversight Office is there not only to help the citizens, but it's there to help the police, because it works on both ways. Just as a body camera, it does speak to both individuals. And I think they can show that the police were in order and appropriate in the actions that they've taken. And they can also say that the police probably should have handled it differently. But for me, I think the most important thing is that it's a matter of prevention. If you are able to have the community oversight and that relationship between the two, they can work together to prevent certain things from occurring. So I hope that answers pretty much the question. I know it's extended, but I'm a thorough person.
All right. Talk to us a little bit about process. So a number of people in Nashville don't really know that you don't just vote on a bill once in the city council, you have these multiple readings. So
Right.
What's it going to take from here for your bill to be implemented?
Well, we're on third reading, which is this. So it goes on 3 readings. The first reading is basically an introduction of the bill. And the second reading is when you have a public hearing, or, well, you have public hearing doing resolutions and things of that nature. And then the third is when it actually becomes enacted with the approval of the mayor. So once the council approves of it in this third reading, then it will go to the mayor's office, and the mayor will then approve or not approve. And if he does approve, then it will go into effect.
We got a question in the chat about the 8 can't wait. So some people are still protesting and they think that this is too reform oriented and doesn't go far enough in terms of redirecting funding. So can you talk a little bit about what kind of dialogue is going on with the protesters and what you think is likely to come out of that at this point?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have an article in the Tennessee Tribune where the People's Budget, one of the representatives wrote an article indicating that the council members ignored the wishes of its constituents because they did not defund the police and divert funding from there, and we added more funding there. So the thing of it is that we get thousands of emails. And when it came to defunding the police, we had quite a few. And if any one of you were on that public hearing, you know that we went to 5:30 in the morning to hear people talk about defunding the police. And defunding the police doesn't mean that we're just going to dismantle the police, but that we're just going to divest funding from the police and put it into some more areas that could help possibly balance out some of the violent activity that we may see, like in social services where we see poverty taking place, and different things where it can help in workforce development, or in places where it could be more of an incentive to the people as opposed to punishment of the people. And but I say that we've got just as many emails telling us that we want the police, we need the police, and we need public safety, as we've gotten for people saying defund the police. So it's a balance that the councils has to take in order to do what we believe that's in the best interest of the people. And for the most part, for me, and I believe most of the council members, we have a good police department. They do more things right than they do wrong. Should there be reform? Yes. Do we have some cultural issues that's within the police department? Yes, we do. And it just doesn't happen overnight. These are years and years and years of habits and practices that will have to be changed. And until we make changes like changes in the leadership, we're going to continue to get the same of what it is that we have. So, not saying anything uh, negative about Chief Anderson, because I believe he believes that he did a great job and he was doing the very best that he could. And some people would say differently. And I'm not so sure I believe that wholeheartedly, but in that vein, um, things do have to change, and they are changing, and I think they're going to change for the better. The unrest that we have in the city and across the nation, I think is helping the movement. Because if it had just been a cry from the Black community, we wouldn't have got the kind of response. And if it had just been a cry from the Nashville community, because even though we have the Community Oversight Board and the Community Oversight Office, the police department has not done a good job in building that relationship and being responsive to the Community Oversight Board or to the office. And the mayor, not any one of the mayors that we've had in the last 2 years, 3 years, have insisted that the police department work hand in hand with community oversight.
Can you say a little bit more about that? So you talked about why you think having a diverse group of protesters really push things along. Can you unpack that a little bit for us and talk a little bit more about why that's so critical?
Well, as we've seen the killing of George Floyd unfold right before our eyes, I think it has become, even though it may have been very obvious in the Black community that there's been some systemic racism and things have been different, but now it has been laid upon a nation of people that it was so blatant that this type of activity is going on. And not only that, but even once these things happen and it goes to arbitration, a lot of judges exonerate people, and they are not really having to pay fairly and adequately for the things that they've done. And people are frankly tired of that. They are better than that, and they want to see better than that. And it's a forceful. It's a movement right now. It is Black, it's white, it's young, it's old. Everyone is in a posture that this is not right and it needs to change. And they know that in order for things to change, that there has to be some persistent, consistent demands. And for that, and actually, I really appreciate the force. I mean, people do things by choice or by force, and it is taking force for something like this to happen. And the people in this in now knows that it's going to require a force for it to be done, and therefore they are going to stay with it, and they're going to push for it, and they're going to continue until they actually see real change, because it's necessary for that change to occur. And the timing is right. I mean, all of it has happened now, and the timing is right. And I think people are looking at, you know, I don't like what my ancestors did. And if I can be a part of that change, I want to. And they are asking for it, and they are stepping up, and they're being bold and radical. And in order to have that kind of change, you got to have radical behavior. And that's what they're exercising now.
A little bit more around the Community Oversight Board. Are they dealing with any issues recently? Can you talk a little bit about the types of issues that they've had come up? And also, have the police been cooperative? So is it really working, this idea that they're going to work in tandem and partnership?
No, the police have not been cooperative. And yes, the Community Oversight Board has been working and offering quite a few. They have been really insistent with the 8 can't wait. The post-commissioning of officers as it relates to certain things that have occurred. They have been looking at some specific cases that have occurred in Nashville that 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 people probably have forgotten about. I'm trying to get to my phone because I've got some notes where I know that I was basically made aware of some instances that were definitely related to some things right here in Nashville. And because the police have not been forced to do anything, that it's just they've been very dismissive of the Community Oversight Board and the Community Oversight Office. One of the things that the former director of the Community Oversight, Mr. Wheaton, was here, suggested that officers who were involved in a situation that occurred with a young woman, excessive force was used on Dickinson Road as a gas station. And in the investigation, the punishment of a 30-day suspension was held. And in that time, the officer was able to resign and was not decertified. And not only that, but it was not documented and posted. So when another municipality wanted to hire him, it was not a part of his record. So they could not pull that up and say, well, this person did this. So he was able to go and work for another municipality as if nothing was wrong. And that was something that came out with the Community Oversight Office. Things like that that have occurred. And that's why the post-commissioning is really, really important, because if you don't have things documented, then there's no way for them to be able to know that the history of those officers who would have bad behavior.
That's what your bill is trying to address.
And that's what my bill is trying to address.
So do you feel like this will be considered in the process for the new chief? Are they going to be looking for somebody who will work better with the Community Oversight Board?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I know that there's a resolution now asking that there is a representation on the police search from the Community Oversight Board or the Community Oversight Office. There's also been talk that there may be a conflict of interest because the community's oversight of what it is that the police do. And then now we're going to tell you what to do and how to do. So I understand the blurred lines in that, but I do think that that is really critically important for a new officer to understand that that is one thing that has to be done. There is a people's choice, an overwhelmingly people's choice body of people in the community oversight that they are expecting to serve as a representative on behalf of the people, and that you've got to work with them. And I think it has to be unequivocally clear that that is something that must be done by our mayor and by the council and by the search committee. It has to be made clear that that is part of the responsibility of the leader to ensure that that relationship with community oversight and the law enforcement body occurs. And not only that, but the transparency. See, when you don't open up those things, and it's a lack of transparency. So it's like you're trying to hide something because you know it's not right. And that is not necessarily true, but it's definitely conveyed in that way. And that's the sense that people get when you're unwilling to be transparent about it. So if you're doing nothing wrong, why not? Open it up, let people know and see. So I think that also hurts in the relationship with the community itself as a whole. If you're not going to, if you're going to be dismissive of this board, of this office, that says that you're not really willing to work with us as a community.
Right. So what will that process look like? So you said you'll need the mayor's office on board, the council on board, and the search committee. In the end, so the search committee is going to recommend a candidate to replace Chief Anderson. But do you guys approve that person? So what's the actual process of us getting a new police chief?
Well, it based on what the mayor has recently announced, there will be an opportunity for us to have some weigh in on that. Um, but I also know, and as serving as chair of the Minority Caucus, one of the demands that we have is for the mayor to insist that there is open communication between the chief of police and the Community Oversight Office and the Community Oversight Board. We plan to hold him accountable. So, and we've requested a meeting with the mayor, with the Minority Caucus, so he can hear from our mouths to his ears, although he's received it in writing. But we want to have a conversation to let you know that one of the demands that we want is for there to be communications open between the police department, the police chief, and the Community Oversight Board and the Community Oversight Office. And we're going to stay on the mayor until we see that happens. We represent the people, and the people have spoken.
Great. Given the calls for balancing the budget and focusing on strengthening communities, how do you see policing relative to and in conjunction with all the other things that we need to do, particularly in distressed neighborhoods?
So that's where the hard part comes in. You know, when I first started talking about that, we're getting as many emails from those individuals who who want us to invest in the police. Um, I think what we've got to do is be candid, raw. You know, we got to speak to it like, why do we need tanks? Why do we need new 2 helicopters? Why do we need a military as a police force? We've not really had that necessity in this city. And I know the protesting that we recently experienced um, was one that caused some concerns, but it really was not bad enough that we needed to roll tanks. It wasn't bad enough. I mean, the tear gas that was utilized basically calmed things down. And I know that there was a bill regarding tear gas, and I think that tear gas was used the last time some 20 years ago, 20 some years ago. So you're right. We do utilize things when it comes to the budget, but for me, I don't think we need to play politics like that. I don't think we need to use the budget. We take that budget and put it to the places where it really needs to go, and we need to fully fund our police force in order for them to be effective. Because I would not like to see this city without a police department. And I want to see them do things that are well and good for the community and hear the community, but also provide a safe environment and give them the things that they need. I think that we can have, we need a forensic audit, first of all, when it comes to the budget, you know, to go through and see those things that really are used effectively and what is not. But I don't want to use that as a way. I think we have a moral responsibility to do what's right. And we use that and our conscience to know the things that has to be done. So I understand that it does cross over, but I am of the opinion that let's call it the way that it is. Let's do right from wrong and support and listen to the things that the people are saying and address those in the best possible ways, and let the experts, true experts, give us. We need use the best practices, and that's one thing that the 8 Can't Wait does. It has those policies that's not from one municipality, but from an expert of people that has been researched and tried across this country, that they know that are effective in policing, and we need to utilize those things.
All right, great. I'm going to pivot now and talk a little bit about public schools and COVID in Nashville. But before I do that, I just want to make sure, does anyone else have questions about the police or the calls for defunding? Let's see. So should we adopt an equity lens as other cities have to guide us in making budgetary decisions? Do you want to address that?
I absolutely believe so. I mean, that's why I spoke of forensic auditing and all of that. I think the equity lens for sure is really, really important for us to do, because that's where the inequality comes from. That's where a lot of the unrest, a lot of the people that are involved in the illegal activity, is it's a matter of survival for them. And once you get in it, I mean, they say all the time that, you go to jail, you learn how to become a better criminal in jail. So when you come out, then you just learn how to do things a little bit better. So yes, I believe that an equity lens to our budget, and we start doing things to incentivize people and to help them and support them, I think does a much better and greater good than for us to punish and penalize them, especially when at young ages, at a young age. So yes, I absolutely believe that.
Great. And then there was another question that came across about the response on the People's Plaza. Do you have any comments on that ongoing protest there?
Well, as I've said to some of them, I'm the kind of person who try to do my protesting from the inside out as opposed from the outside in. So I will go toe to toe with the mayor or anybody else to do what I think is the right thing to do. Um, but I think it takes a little bit of all of that in order for things to change. I applaud their efforts and what it is that they are doing. I do want them to protest with a purpose. What is it that you want from this? What can we do, and how we work together to achieve the things that you're looking to to happen? I think all of that is necessary, but I don't know if with the legislatures, I know some legislators have come out and spoken to them, but I would love to see the governor say, get those protesters and bring them inside, and let them come into the legislative quarter so they can social distance, or even if they have just 10 of them, and have a conversation and say, listen, I want to hear what it is that you have to say, and try to see, can they work through some things that will make them feel as though they are being heard. But as long as you're putting state troopers there saying, if you come on these steps, we're going to arrest you, that's not the way to come away with that's not the democracy that President Bush talked about on yesterday at John Lewis's funeral. So we've got to really, truly have democracy. And when you look at the protesters, that's showing you right there that everybody is trying to work together except for the government. So hear their cry and respond positively to it.
I hope we see that as well. I'm not holding my breath. Let's talk a little bit about schools, because one of the issues really that came out around the budget is you see this huge increase for police funding, huge decrease in public school funding. Even though people don't use those words, my friends who are teachers feel like there's been a concerted movement to defund public schools for a very long time. So part of where people's anger comes from around the police budget is that you almost see the dragging across those columns from education
Right.
to the police.
Right.
Can you talk about schools in Nashville? There's no easy solution to what's going on in schools in Nashville, but talk about what you think the key issues are from the council's perspective.
Well, I really can't say from the council's perspective, because, you have different views on the council. And, but I also believe, so me speaking, I'm speaking from my point of view and what I believe and what I think. So Nashville schools, I mean, when we talk about equity lens, I think that will show that we need some assistance, because the school system has a predominant number of Black children in those schools that need more than their white counterparts. Black and brown children that need more than their white counterparts. And maybe to help them, um, we need those funds. Now, I've had a really difficult time with this, because when I was in school, we had less money, but we all had books. We had extracurricular activities. We had buses to take us to football games and to different things and all of that. But I was recently told that the difference in that is now we have a demand to pay people more, because you've got more people in school. I don't think anyone in my high school had a doctorate degree. There may have been a few that had a master's degree, but now you've got a majority of teachers that are demanding more money because of the credentials that they bring to the table. So it costs a lot more to run a school system. And therefore we need to do that. But when it comes to the council, basically half of the council's budget goes to schools. It's been about 2 billion. Our budget is about $2 billion, and about half of that goes to the schools. Now, I believe, and I'm not a budget and finance person, so I can't really speak very intelligently on this, but I can give you what my take and what I believe and what I've understood it to be, is that because the COVID-19 was going to bring in quite a bit of money, that the budget that we passed may not have had quite as much money towards things that could be given in terms of the operation and support of it. And what we could do to make that impact was by giving the $15 the living wage to those employees who, the paraprofessionals who were, below $15 an hour. But I also speak to the fact that while our budget may have been reduced, the budget from in this time, it may have been reduced. The budget from the state has been reduced. And last year, our budget for school systems was increased. We gave more than we did the year before, but the budget that the state gave was less. So all in all, the school systems got less money. So if we are already behind and we give less money, then that means that we're going to be farther behind. And that's unfortunate. And it's just going to be a game of catch up, and it just doesn't, it's just bleak, you know. Um, and now that I think that we have a director for schools that seems to be um, good with the greater Nashville, I think we'll be able to get more progression out of our school board and get some things going and working. Whereas before, because there was friction amongst the director and some of the school board members and some of the things that were going on, that did hamper the progression of the schools. Although I did like the equity um, focus that Dr. Joseph brought to our schools, because that's really necessary.
Do you know anything about the state rainy day funds and how it could maybe be used in the current emergency situation to support schools or other aspects?
No, I don't. But I can tell you that that I really did not like the strong arm governance that the state used on us as a council in order to build up that rainy day fund. And I'm not sure what they're going to do with it and why they have it. Um, and so, no, I don't. But I don't like the strong arm governance. I don't like them. Um, Threatening, telling us that they're going to dismantle the council or take over the council if we don't institute this particular tax increase, property tax increase, in order for us to build up that rainy day fund. I did not like that at all. I did not like the 34% tax increase. But the reason why I voted for it is because I felt like what that budget was doing was much better than what it was that the mayor's budget was going to do in helping. This budget helps more people than what the mayor's budget was going to do. But I think all of it was by design. I believe that they presented that budget that the mayor had, and then they presented the other budget that the budget finance chair had, and knowing that either way they were going to get what they wanted, and that was enough money to build that rainy day fund.
All right. Can you talk a little bit about the minority caucus and so what are your priorities on the minority caucus and how open is the rest of the council to the caucus?
So the minority caucus is a caucus, and I don't know, many of you may know, but historically it was known as the Black Caucus. But once we did get other brown people on the caucus, it was moved from being the Black Caucus to the Minority Caucus. And one of the things that we have in common are issues with equity. And those are the things that we are focusing on as a caucus. So there were 5 demands that we asked of the mayor, and that was to have communications with the Community Oversight Board, insist on that, that he has communications with the Minority Caucus, that he insists that the police chief has communications with the Community Oversight Board and the Community Oversight Office and engage them more, that they hire a chief diversity officer, that they also look to the equal business opportunity, because that was legislation that was passed in order to support minority contracting. When you look at the way things have operated in the city government, the minority contracting has been very, very low. And in order for things to get better for all of us around, we've got to have more equity. We've got to, if and that while there is supposed to be a 20% on minority contracts, when it comes to offering a contract to a primary contractor, they should have 20% minority participation. We found that they don't really have the minority participation, that they've just made a good faith effort. So the equal business opportunity legislation that was passed last year really has a legal aspect to it in those recommendations, to make sure that it was solid, that it was things that really could be effective, and that the city could legally do some of those things, which is going to make it a greater playing field for a lot of minorities who now are experiencing less. And those were the demands that we were asking of the mayor. And most of them, as you know, focused on um, equity. The one thing I can say is that the Metro Human Relations and the Department of Finance have been working on a job description for a chief diversity officer. And I'm not supposed to say it, but they did finish the job description, and it really does look good. Someone that's going to be dedicated to making sure that they work with the community, with the elected officials, and with the government and the mayor's office and the metro departments to ensure that there is greater equity. And that, I think, is going to be a win-win for us all. And it's just those things that the Minority Caucus is looking to affect. They have talked about it, and as we told the mayor, it's one thing to say that you want to see equity but to show it, there has to be action behind everything that you said. And showing up at a protest is not the answer. I'm afraid of COVID. I haven't been out there to a protest. I understand and I applaud what it is that they're doing, but I'm staying at home. I want to stay safer at home. I'm in my office right now, but I'm here. I've got other people that's on the other side, but I do believe that we've got to stay safer at home, and it's up to us to make sure that we do that. So as far as I'm concerned, I want to see the mayor put some of these things into action. Implement the equal business opportunity, hire our chief diversity officer, make sure that the body cameras are employed and people are held accountable to that. Make sure that there is communication between the police chief and community oversight, and for the mayor himself to have open communication with the Minority Caucus. Those are our 5 demands, and we want to see them implemented and embraced.
Great. Speaking of COVID, do you feel like the mayor's response to the pandemic has been adequate? Are there things you'd rather see or see in addition to what's already been done? I saw yesterday he has banned those weird cars that drive people around downtown and let them drink. So all of those will be gone, which is probably a good thing. What else would you like to see the governor do or the mayor do? And also talk a little bit about the governor, because it seems like they're not on the same page, the mayor and the governor.
Oh, right. Well, I really, I think that they've done a good job addressing COVID-19, listening and being driven by the data and the science is more important. And I'm glad to see that they did do that. I do think that they possibly opened things up a little bit too soon, especially those venues where there are people that would gather. When you talk about the barber shops or beauty shops and other event, opportunities, businesses where you got a few that can be monitored. But when you talk about bars, restaurants, when you've got quite a few people that will gather, I think they really should have taken a little bit more caution to that. I think they waited a little bit too long to mandate the masks. I understand Dr. Caldwell's hesitancy, saying that it was hard to enforce. But I believe, just like it's hard to enforce people wearing seatbelts, but you still put it in law because the majority of people will abide by the rules. So put it in force, put it there so people can decide and what they do. And when you see that they have not, then you enforce it. I don't think the schools should be open. Again, we talked about how the schools are disproportionately enrolled with brown and black children. I believe that those kids, as we've seen, may not actually have COVID themselves, but they can be carriers of it, and they take it back to their grandparents. That I know a lot of people in the Black community, you have grandmothers and great aunts and uncles and grandfathers who are raising their grandchildren, and they have compromised systems. So while it will not necessarily affect the children, they bring it back to the home where it will affect the home. And when you lose the the main person, the breadwinner, and the guardian of these kids, of that household, then they're now more in foster care. Now it creates a windfall of problems that can occur. So I really want to be, it's better to be safe than sorry. And I want to see them operate safely and make sure that our numbers are down and they have flattened this curve before we open it up to bring people in gathering situations. And so I disagree with the governor in that, and there may be some kids who can in other counties that can go there and do that. But again, those are those families and those children who have that option. And there are others who do not have such options, and therefore we put them in at risk. And I'm concerned about the liability, that may come from that. The liability of employees, and not only are there teachers, but the paraprofessionals that we said that they don't have the same type of insurance. So all of that, I think, has to be considered as we move forward. And it's better to be safe than sorry on all levels.
Very true. One of the questions that came in on the chat is, does the council have the resources that it needs to effectively legislate and consider the Metro budget?
I would say no, because when I tell you that I spend an inordinate amount of time with council business, it is very, very hard and very difficult. And if I had someone that was assigned to me to help me understand the legislation, to help me, now we do have a staff that can research legislation and do the things that are necessary to that. And that was one thing that I did as chair of the Minority Caucus this time, was I created a budget committee within the Minority Caucus. And I did that because we've got quite a few new Metro Council members, as well as those that are in the Minority Caucus. And I know it was very difficult for me, because during that time we were getting those books that were about this thick, of material for you to read through and try to understand it all. So having that budget committee, Tanaka Bircher, who is the immediate past budget chair of finance, budget and finance, led that committee. And we have Zolfat Swara, who is a CPA, who brought a wealth of knowledge and to that Minority Caucus for us to get a better understanding of that, which I think was really, really good for us to be able to recommend things that we recommended, or to see the things that we wanted to see to happen and to take place, and question the administration. As I said, I was not happy about the strong arm governance that was exercised by our state comptroller, but I do believe that they are very well aware that this is a different council and they are going to question. They are just not going to sign off on everything that they bring before us, which I think is an excellent thing. So yes, if we had other people and other experts that could help us with that, because we don't have a finance person in the council. Most of our support are administrative and those who are legal.
Someone also asked, saying they're also afraid of COVID and haven't been out, but wondering if we should have a process to document and discuss the messages that you're hearing from the young, have conversations with them to make sure they're being heard, kind of like what you were suggesting the governor should do. Should the council do that? Should they go out and invite these people to a meeting and see what we can learn from them?
Well, I can tell you that the Metro Council, and people may not know this, but the Metro Council has a weekly meeting with Dr. Jahanga and Dr. Caldwell and the Vice Mayor every Thursday at 10:15. And anyone who's interested in participating can. You can dial 862-7300, and then there's a access code. I think it's 63009 hashtag, and then to get in is 4949 hashtag. And you can get in on the call. And many of them, I mean, those council members in Southeast Nashville have been on top of it. They see that the heat spots are there. They've been asking for the data, the statistics. Some of the other council members have been doing an amazing job in going through those numbers and really touching on the things that really matter to the constituents. So, and a lot of people have been taking the time to call in or to send their questions to the website for COVID-19. So I believe the council can go out and do more of that, although I do want to say that they are doing a great job, I think, in addressing it, especially those who have identified those heat spots. They have been really, really aggressive in making sure that something is being done in those areas.
I think that's great. And it sounds like the council is open to outside input. I think the questioner is looking for a little more proactive response with the young people in particular. So he says the interest is in dignifying the kids, thinking the council should go out and call them in specifically for a dedicated conversation about leadership.
Yeah, well, let me just say this too. You know, this is the first time that we've had 50% women on the council, and that has made a world of difference because, you know, women rock, and they have been very focused in doing the things that need to be done. And I am just so grateful and thankful for the new council members who have come, and they have not necessarily an agenda, but they come with the purpose. They come with things that they want to see done, and they came and they hit the ground running, trying to do so. And I just want to applaud them for doing that.
Great. We are out of time. If anyone has last questions, looks like there's suggestions for wanting to get involved in local politics and running for a position. So we'll make that our last question. What advice would you give somebody?
What I would advise people to do is get to know your local council member, get involved, keep in contact, find out what it is there. You'd be surprised that people don't know what district they live in. They don't know who their council members, you know, representatives are. And I would encourage them to do that, get involved, speak out, speak up and speak out, and attend a council meeting. You can do it in the comforts of your home now virtually and see how it goes. Go through the legislation, ask questions. You know, I know personally, I love it because when you ask questions, that makes me have to work, and I learn more by doing so. So all of that, and hold us accountable. Why did you do that? Why did you not do that? I think when we have that type of conversation, it gives a better understanding. And I think it's really important, not only for us to be understood, but for us to understand. And likewise, I want you to understand me, and I want to understand you. So it goes both ways. So having that open communication, and I am just a transparent person. And I have to, because I talk too much. If I didn't, I have to just be transparent and open, because if I'm not, I have to remember all the things that I said. So, and I just welcome that, and I encourage and ask you to, build that relationship with your council member, and knowing that some of them are in their second term, then the next one that comes up, you'll be very well prepared to put in the person that you know that's going to look out for the greater good of your community.
If I could, before we close, first, I just want to personally thank you, Sharon, for being here. I know that your time is very valuable and you're very busy trying to cover a lot of territory. And I just want to echo what you just said. I have been very impressed with the responsiveness of the members of the Metro Council. So I would echo what you say. Reach out if you haven't yet figured out who your actual council person is. I recommend that you look. And then in addition, Sharon is one of 5 at-large members. So there are both at-large members and then specific district members. And I recommend you get to know them, because they have been, I've been incredibly impressed in the responsiveness to constituent concerns.
Well, thank you. And let me just say that Councilmember Kobe Sledge and I, prior to this call, we were on a call with some kids, some high school kids, who were really asking some of the same questions. It is amazing how intelligent and magnificent these kids are these days. And I mean, they all got on a call, identified what district that they were in. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, our future based on those kids is very bright, because they were very bright and very engaged. And I'm so excited about that. And it was something that was handled with the Nashville Civic Design Center. They have a youth initiative that was created for this. So in your communities, create something. You've got your federation, get some young kids, get them on a Zoom call with council members, and do the exact same thing, and encourage that input, and have them get involved in doing things that will encourage others to get involved. So all of this is really about the people. We are there for the people and by the people. So thank you for giving me this opportunity for you all to get to know me. And I welcome anyone to call me or to email me, and I will get back. I may not get back right away, but I'll eventually get back to you.
You've been very responsive, and that is actually an excellent, I also would say the young people have been so impressive, and doing a call specifically for them is a great suggestion. I will absolutely follow up on that. So I send Leslie's thank you and apology. She's having a computer glitch. So I will close out the meeting. Just as a reminder, next Friday, we have a speaker from the Anti-Defamation League that will speak a little bit about the Stop Hate for Profit campaign. In the meantime, please feel free, anyone on this call, to reach out to me if you want to get Sharon's direct contact information and all of that. Sharon's very responsive, as I said, as have all the Metro Council members that I have worked with. So thank you all for joining the call. Sharon, thank you again for making yourself available for us and for sharing your time and your expertise and your passion. And I really, really appreciate everything that you are doing for our city.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having that trust in me.
All right. Thank you all. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.